Attaching elastic with a Baby Lock vibrant is easy with the optional elastic foot. Actually, they call it an elasticator foot in the instruction manual. In this case, we're going to use a 4-thread overlock. You can also use a 3-thread overlock. The one change we're going to make from the standard settings is that stitch length. You're going to want to take that all the way up to 4, and then make sure that your differential feed is at its standard setting. Now, how the foot works is there's a couple of things you want to take a look at. First, there's this set of little rollers, or the set of rollers that sits in the front. That's actually what moves the elastic through the attachment. And then there's a static bar that sits underneath that. The elastic will sit in between those two pieces. To release that, we will pull back on the front and simply slide our elastic in. Now, once I release that, I now have a little bit of tension, you can see, between the roller and that static bar. I'm going to pull the length of my elastic towards me because that's what I'm going to sew into my project. The next thing that we're going to want to make sure is that we pull a length of elastic behind the presser foot. This is really important when you're using the elastic foot. Our last component piece is this knob that sits on top. This actually controls the tension between the roller and the static bar, meaning the tighter I make this, the more pressure that is placed on this elastic, which means it will stretch it more. To get that optimum setting, you're going to want to play with the elastic you're using because different elastics require different tension. I'm going to take that down to probably almost, I'm going to say that's like almost 1/8 of an inch from this top ridge here. Now we're ready to exchange out our presser feet. I'm taking the standard presser foot off and I'll slide it out of the way, and now I'll put the elastic foot in place. Sliding that right back in place, and again, you want that elastic on that back side. I'm going to lower my presser foot. Now, when you're looking at the elastic to see the position of where it needs to sit in relationship to the roller, you can see that you have this open space here. This tells me I have about a 1/2 inch of space, roughly maybe a 5/8, and that's about as large as I can use for the elastic if I want the tension on the entire piece of elastic. I want to slide my elastic a little bit further to the right so that I can make sure that both needles are catching that elastic when I look in my window right here. Okay, now I'm ready to place my fabric underneath the presser foot. Place my fabric wrong side down because I want the elastic to be on the back side of my fabric. What's going to happen, the blade will trim that fabric edge and my elastic will be attached as I'm sewing. Now, you don't have to pull on this elastic because remember, the tension on the elastic is being taken care of by the presser foot. And just slide that right up to the cutting blade, and I'm going to take a couple of stitches to grab that elastic and we're off. Now, you'll find that when you first start out, and this is why it's very important to make sure that stitch length is at 4, that you might get a little bogged down on some of these stitches. So what I do is I actually just pull on that elastic on the back side just to help feed. See how easy? And see how that fed that through now? And now I'm going to continue to stitch, and my elastic, as you can see, that the tail is curving up. That means that my elastic is being stretched. And I'm going to put a little bit more tension on it so you can just see the differences in the tension. And again, I'm just trimming that edge, a little bit more tension. And you can see again, see how easily that's curling up on me? I'm going to put maybe a little too much tension on, so I'll back off. And what will happen sometimes is, you notice, see how my elastic slipped? I'm going to slide that back over so I make sure that gets caught by the needles. And I'm going to continue to sew to the end. Now, I'm not going to sew this whole length of elastic through. I'm just going to sew my fabric to the back side. And again, because I have tension on that elastic, I just need to help it a little bit along the way to come out from underneath the presser foot. I'm going to clip my threads, and here is my beautiful edge with my elastic attached. Grab that thread tail, and you can see what happens. That elastic is in place, and it's going to stretch back into place as I'm stitching. And here's the back side. Now, if I were putting this in a seam, I would simply fold this over, and on my sewing machine, I would stitch it in place, and I would have a beautiful edge using the elasticator foot for the Baby Lock Vibrant.